Lesson 8-2, multiplying a polynomial by a monomial. Our essential question today is how do you multiply a monomial and a polynomial? Remember that a monomial means one term and a polynomial means many terms. So it could be a binomial, trinomial, or it may have more terms than that, 4, 5, 6 terms. So our first question says find each product, distribute. So outside of the parentheses we have our monomial, 6y. And inside the parentheses we have a trinomial, 4y squared minus 9y minus 7. So we are going to take the 6y and we're going to distribute it, which means multiply it, by each of the terms that are in the parentheses. So on this first one, I'm going to show you what that means by writing it out. 6y times 4y squared. Then we would take 6y times negative 9y. And then we would take 6y times negative 7. Multiplying the first two together, 6y and 4y squared. Remember, 6 times 4 is 24. And y times y squared is y to the third power, because y means y to the first power, and when we're multiplying with the same variable as our base, we can add together our exponents. The next one, 6 times negative 9 is negative 54, and then y to the first times y to the first would be y to the second. And last, 6y times negative 7 is negative 42y. So if I put these together to get my answer, it would be 24y to the third minus 54y squared minus 42y. Remember, put your answer in standard form, so that means the term with the highest exponent down to the lowest. Okay, our next one, I'm not going to do all of that writing out. I'm just going to assume that we know how to multiply these. So 5a squared times negative 4a squared would be negative 20a to the fourth power. The next one, 5a squared times 2a. 5 times 2 is 10. A squared times a is a to the third power. And last, 5a squared times negative 7 would be negative 35a squared. Our next set is a little bit more complicated. Now we've got a monomial, negative 5cd to the third power. So it's got a couple of different variables in it. A couple different variables, c to the first power and d to the third power. And we're multiplying it by a polynomial. So not a monomial or binomial or trinomial, but 4 terms, a polynomial. So this first one, I will write it out again. So 1, 2, 3, 4 places were distributed. So negative 5cd to the third power times 3cd to the fourth power. Then we multiply it by negative 2d. We multiply it by negative 1c. And last but not least, multiply it by 9. Okay, so being very careful here, I am going to write my 1's in. Okay, now we're ready to go. So multiplying negative 5 and 3 gives me negative 15. C to the first and c to the first would be c to the second. D to the third, d to the fourth, d to the seventh, like that. The next one, negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. C to the first, and d to the third, d to the first, so d to the fourth altogether. Next one, negative 5 times negative 1 is 5. C to the second, d to the third. And last, negative 45, c, d to the third. Now writing this one in standard form, it's a little bit trickier, or maybe a lot trickier, you might say. So I'm not going to be really picky about the order here. I'm just going to keep it in the order that it was. So negative 15 c squared d to the 7th plus 10 cd to the 4th plus 5 c squared d to the 3rd minus 45 cd to the 3rd. So it kind of looks like a mess. And that's what you can expect from some of your homework problems today. When you're multiplying a monomial and a polynomial like this, you're not going to get a nice answer. All right, next one. We're going to go with the shortcut on this one, so I'm not going to write it all out. 2 times 4 is 8. If I add the exponents on the x's, there would be 8 of them, and on the y's, 4 of them. The next one, 2 times 5 is 10. Adding my exponents, I get 7, and y to the 3rd just stays y to the 3rd. The next one, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. If I add my x's, there are 5 of them, and my y's, there are also 5 of them. So here's my final answer, and I'm just going to leave it in that order. Okay, now to simplify each expression, bond them, and then combine like terms. So on these, we're kind of combining the last lesson where we were adding and subtracting our polynomials. So we're going to have to distribute first. Remember, whenever you see parentheses, you want to distribute. So we're going to distribute on both of these to start us out. So this first one, 3 times 2x squared is 6x squared. 3 times negative 4x is negative 12x. 3 times negative 15 is negative 45. Moving over to the second to distribute the 6x. 6x times 5x is 30x squared. Plus 6x times 2 is 12x. Now, like terms, I'm starting with my highest exponent term, of course. So 6x squared combined with 30x squared is 36x squared. Moving over, negative 12x plus 12x, cancel each other out, they're gone. And then last but not least, negative 45. So my final answer is 36x squared minus 45. Another one like that, this one's going to be trickier to work with because we're distributing a negative 1x here. So we're going to be really careful with our signs. So on my first one, I would get 15x squared plus 6x minus 12. On the second one, negative 1 times negative 7 is negative 7. X times x squared is x to the 3rd power. Negative 1 times positive 2 is negative 2. X times x is x to the 2nd power. Negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. And this one would just have the x. All right, combine like terms. My highest is negative 7x to the 3rd, and it does not have a like term. Moving on to the next one, 15x squared minus 2x squared would give me 13x squared. Positive 6x and positive 3x combine to positive 9x. And last but not least, negative 12. So there's my polynomial in standard form. All right, now challenge. We like to give you a challenge every once in a while, so check this one out. It says, solve these equations. Solve these equations. So, distribute, train track. This is an equation. It's not just a polynomial anymore. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. Now be careful on this one. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. X times x is x squared. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4, so positive 4x. Now, simplify this. Combine the like terms on the left-hand side. Same side like terms. Positive 1x squared and negative 1x squared cancel each other out. 3x and 4x would add to give me 7x. So 7x equals 9x minus 16. Look at how nice this equation cleaned up. I would need to subtract my 9x next, not the 7x because it's smaller. I know we like to subtract the smaller one, but it's all by itself. So if it's all by itself, leave it alone. So I can divide by negative 2 on both sides, and x equals 8. Final answer. Remember, you could substitute it into your original equation if you wanted to check and make sure that you were correct. One more of these. This time I'm distributing once on each side. So x times 12 is 12x, and x times x is x squared. On the other side, x times x is x squared again, and x times negative 4 is negative 4x. Now, this problem, I do see one set of like terms that are on the same side, right here. So I'm going to take care of that first. So, leaving this side alone, 2x minus 4x will be negative 2x. Okay, now, I need to get my variables on one side of this equation and everything else on the other side. So I'm going to start out with the x squared. If I subtract x squared on each side, look what happens. They're gone. Okay? Then I can subtract my 12x on both sides. And what I'm left with is negative 7 equals negative 14x. These are both negatives. Negative 2 minus 12 more is the same as negative 2 plus negative 12. Now if I divide by negative 14, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and this will reduce to 1/2, or 0.5. So I got a nice answer for each of these equations. So if you're up for the challenge, you should try these, and you should expect to get nice answers. You should be able to write your summary now, and then check with your teacher or check their homework calendar online for your assignment.